there has been a lady go missing. And it looks like we've got some sort of a resolution for this. But I got my lawyer sort of hat on and have been following it. And if you were ever going to go to uni and do a course, doing a law course, it does equip you for lots of other jobs, no matter what you do, and you can dissect stuff. And we'll get into that in a bit. But they've been looking for Sarah Everard this week, and straight away I knew that this was something very, very familiar.
Martin, as you're speaking, we've just had an update from the Metropolitan Police. Let me read it to you. A man arrested in connection with the disappearance of Sarah Everard remains in custody at a London police station. The man, who is aged in his 40s, was arrested on the evening of Tuesday, the 9th of March, on suspicion of kidnap. Today, Wednesday, the 10th of March, he has been further arrested on suspicion of murder and a separate allegation of indecent exposure. The man is a serving Metropolitan Police officer in the Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command. His primary role was uniformed patrol duties of diplomatic premises. A woman who is aged in her 30s was also arrested on the evening of 9th of March on suspicion of assisting an offender. She remains in custody. Officers are searching locations in London and Kent, including a property in Deal and an area of woodland near Ashford. Following the arrest of the police officer, the Metropolitan Police has made a referral to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. So that is the very worst of news, Martin, then, that a man has now been arrested on suspicion of murder.
Yes. Now, I should say, I suppose at the start, it doesn't necessarily mean that police have found a body as part of this investigation. We don't know that yet, and they certainly haven't said that as part of that statement. But they clearly believe that this officer has murdered Sarah Everard, and that really is the worst news that her family had been expecting. I was told earlier that murder squad detectives were on their way to this site here. But again, I guess we need to hear definitively from Scotland Yard about the status of this investigation. But yes, for Sarah's family, the news that this officer has been further arrested on suspicion of her murder is the grimmest news.
Yeah, let's just remind viewers of that breaking news in the last few minutes. The Metropolitan Police have said that the serving Metropolitan Police officer who was arrested last night on suspicion of kidnap has been further arrested today on suspicion of murder and a separate allegation of indecent exposure. The man is aged in his 40s and is a serving Metropolitan Police officer in the Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command. His primary role was uniformed patrol duties of diplomatic premises. And as Martin was telling us, the search continuing there at an area of woodland in Ashford, at a property in Deal, and locations in London as well.
Tragic.
Yeah, I mean, this is nothing new.
That video was from last night, wasn't it?
It was, and things have been updated since then. They found human remains. So I think the best way of describing this is when you do law or you get involved in that universe, there's certain language used, and unfortunately, once that veil is lifted, you know what's going on. And when I say this, when somebody is missing and they arrest someone and then they find either a body or remains within a day or two, you know that they've coughed and they've said, yeah, I did do it, I'm sorry, she's buried here. And that's how they found her. So I would put money on the fact that this guy they've got in custody is the guy that did it, and he has told them where she was. Here's the massive problem. He's a copper. Now, I grew up, and you'll remember this, Paul, I grew up, when I was growing up, the Yorkshire Ripper was running rampant during the 70s and 80s. Yeah. And I remember going to school in the late 70s, early 80s. Yeah. And we in Greater Manchester, which nearby, there'd been one of his murders and one of his victims. So literally the whole of the north of England, there was a campaign of terror that descended on women, and ladies were not walking home on their own. They were literally organising groups of them to walk home and stuff. I remember walking through the streets when I was a young guy, and during this era, I didn't see a female on the street whatsoever. It was only guys. That was the extent of this terror. And then here I am now, in 2021. And the advice given to the police during the last 2 days, before they caught the guy, was don't leave your home. Now, you would never give that advice to a guy. It's all women who are suffering this. And I've got to say, I can't believe that after all this time, that it's still this. You've still got this. How shocked would any of us have been if they'd have arrested the person responsible for this the other night and it had been a woman? You would have literally fell off your chair when you heard that news, because you never hear that. It is always one of us, a guy, a bloke. We're still doing this.
The other week, there's it's actually two rapes here in Manchester as well. And talked about, and the question here about is, it's not safe for women to go home on their own, and you said it quite clearly. Who's at fault? Men. Not all men.
Enough.
Not all men, but it's certainly enough
to make it happen.
Yeah. And as a male, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed to be.
I don't get it.
I was talking to someone before the show, and she said to me, well, surely men should tell other men is it sort of like being touchy or feely or a bit weird and all the rest of it. But I never saw that. I didn't. So to me, it was a solo thing. I may be wrong on that, but I never saw that. There's a guy who was arrested and lost his job in Coronation Street who did something and banned the wall.
Yeah, well, that doesn't narrow it down, that.
No, I don't want to. He's
saying,
a major character in Coronation Street, literally a couple of years ago. Literally,
no, I get that. Yeah, I know who that was.
And again, he went out with his mates, but he was caught on his own, sort of fiddling around.
Well, they think
who
they can get away with it.
Who causes it's always men?
They think they can get away with it. I mean, my company that you're part of, the growth of that company, all the people in charge were all women, and the company was so good and was so well run, and there is no need for discrimination on them grounds, and there's no need for this to be going on still.
But what's your advice now then, Mike? You own and run certain clubs across Manchester and other places.
No, you say them. I've got Satan's Hollow, and over the last couple of years, maybe 4 or 5 years, we have been asked for our CCTV because of its proximity that it covers Portland Street and Princess Street, and we've been asked for it more times than you would believe. We have been privy to investigations where they're looking for certain people, and it's the same story. Guys looking at women, taking them somewhere and raping them because they're pissed. And that's the problem. And this is, and sometimes they're not. They don't even have to be pissed for guys to try that. And it's just astounding to me that we can get from where I was describing with the Yorkshire Ripper to now. If you said to me, in 20 or 30 years' time, is this going to have improved? I would have said, of course it will, of course it will. No, it hasn't. I mean, it's still going on.
Let's look at it. Is it the fault of not enough police on the streets?
Yes, that's a massive part of this. And that's what the Tories have done. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to just throw everything onto them like, oh, they've got to answer for this. The Tories have reduced our police force on the street by 20 to 40,000 officers over the last 10 to 15 years. They've been slowly reducing it. You can walk in any major city in the UK from one end to the other and not see a copper. When I was young, you couldn't walk from one end of Stockport to another without seeing a policeman on the beat. There are no policemen on the streets anymore. None. Zero.
What's about the breakdown of the family base, really, I suppose you'd call it. I mean, there's certain people who go down this road. There's mental health issues involved on some guys I know who have been caught of rape and they should have been in a prison or in a hospital or whatever.
Yeah.
So the justice system where people who have been found guilty of rape are released and they may rape or kill.
I get it. I mean, it's complex, and I agree it's complicated.
What can we do? I mean, it's a situation where, I'm ashamed to be a bloke because of what's happened. And I bring back this thing, it's men who cause wars.
Well, I think this is going to get worse. I think when you feel that you hear the details of this, because I was talking earlier about language that you learn when you're doing courses and doing stuff. And can I just tell you now, when someone says they found a body, they've just found a body. It's a body, it's been strangled, it's been shot, it's been stabbed, whatever, it's just there. The parents can go to the mortuary or the funeral directors, and they can kiss them on the forehead and say goodbye, and it's still them. It's not them, but it's enough like them that it feels like closure. Yeah. When you hear somebody say human remains have been found, there's a hacksaw and a blowtorch and a bit of burning involved. There's going to be no kiss on the forehead. There's going to be nothing. There's just going to be bones and fragments and stuff. What has happened here, if I'm right, is absolutely horrendous. And it's, again, guys, and can I say one particular detail of this, which is awful, is that it looks like they found this police officer because of a dash cam. So if you're worried about your rights of surveillance and you don't want all these cameras everywhere, this dash cam on a bus looks like it got the license plate of that car that she was being harassed going into. Now, we don't know whether she got in the car and took a lift off him or whether he dragged her in the car, because he was a big guy. He could have easily done that, no problem. But here's the thing. It looks like he used his warrant card to get her in, and that is a leak from the police station. That is a police officer that's told one of the newspapers that that's what he's admitted, this guy. So you're hearing this first, and I'm telling you now, it's disgraceful. He'll have pulled up next to her and gone, "Oh, you look tired. Oh, can I give you a lift home? I don't know you. I'm a police officer. Here's my warrant card." You can't trust anyone when it gets to that point, can you?
Again, though, Mike, I mean, it's no labelling over what may have happened or may not have happened.
It looks likely to have happened.
But the big picture is, going forward, what can you do as a club owner? What can men do in general? And what can we do as a society to make things safer?
Criticise the people around you when they're behaving in an inappropriate manner. If you see somebody being an absolute creep with women, tell them. If you see the other way round, if it's a complicated world we live in. It could be an older guy trying to get off with some younger guy. It could be somebody in the workplace trying to use their power and their position to get an advantage they wouldn't normally have. But you've got to start stepping up now, because this is ridiculous that I'm having this conversation at my age now, after living through all the Yorkshire Ripper stuff and all the rest of it, and here we are again, and this time is a fucking police officer that looks like he's literally used his job to do this. I might be wrong. Now, he's in hospital now. Did you know that?
No.
Right, well, he's had a head injury in custody. So somebody's, I'm not saying that's right.
It's food for thought.
But that's the bit that doesn't bother me about the story.
It's food for thought as guys, as a race, as just a community. Yeah. Caring of each other rather than, living in society. Yeah. Do we need all the police? Obviously we do.
This is Sean. He wants to be mayor of London, and he is a Tory, and he, during this investigation today, has tweeted out that it's a wonderful opportunity for getting behind the police, blah blah blah, but basically did a political advert for his campaign for mayor, saying that if you elect me, this sort of shit will not happen. He's a scumbag.
Absolute scumbag.
He is that big a scumbag that he actually asked for help from Downing Street today, and they went, "Yeah, you're kind of on your own, mate. Sorry." Thank you for watching. I'm impressed. You've passed the IQ test and got this far, so let's press that button to do the last thing that helps us. It's got subscribe on it, you can't miss it, and please ring the bell for notifications of future videos.